All right, Kamaljeet, give me a countdown.
Dati da 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 dati da 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 dati da da da.
Va va va. Kya baat. Welcome
That's
to
not a sincere va va va, man. That was so boring.
I mean, you take the dot you get. All right?
Yeah, I was like, yeah.
Wow,
fine.
wow.
Listen.
wow.
All right. Okay.
Just like that word. Wah, wah, wah.
Let's. First of all, you're stealing my tihai.
Yeah, right. It's my
didn't even-
right to steal it.
You didn't give me any writer's credit. Okay? Anyways, welcome to another episode of Absolute Focus. That's my tihai stealing wife over there.
Hey, man.
I'm Jazz. Before we introduce our guest, let me just tell you, I can't see anything right now.
We had a bit of a thing this morning.
My son, when I was in the shower, I guess, grabbed my glasses from the bedside
Why
table.
does no one call them spectacles anymore?
Because we're not in Britain.
What are you talking about?
Do you not call them spectacles here?
No.
It's a free country. Anyways, he takes my glasses, bends them until they snap.
Yeah, he actually snapped them.
He snapped it. They're busted. I can't see anything. We went to the eye doctor, and where I got
went
my
to
glasses.
two.
Yeah, and I just said like, "Hey, my glasses broke. Can you fix them?" They said no. I was like, "Okay, let me just buy some new ones." And they're like, "No, you have to have your prescription's out of date. You have to have a whole exam, and we got to shoot air in your eyes and take a retina scan and do all this crazy stuff." And they're like, by the way, there's like $30 copay for this scan and a $20 copay for that scan. And then, yeah, so I got glasses, but they're not going to come in for a few days. So you got to drive me around. And
Well, I do that anyway for the kids anyway.
Yeah.
You have to sit in the back though.
anyways, this is, I believe this is episode 10. It's a big milestone. Wow, we made it through 10.
Oh my God, we know 10 people.
But I think the...
Actually, it's 9 because
makes-
actually we know 9 people.
What makes this really big, okay, this is a huge deal. A huge milestone.
You know what? I didn't start the timer.
Doesn't matter.
It's fine.
What makes it a huge deal for Indian classical musicians, and especially this podcast, I mean, this episode will go down in history. Because it's the first time.
one.
It's the first time we had a white guest.
Yeah.
Wow.
Man, you're so racist.
No, but dude, when Ravi Shankar like played all over India and they're like, "Oh, who's he?" And then like some white guy from the Beatles goes like, "Yeah, that guy's good." Then everybody's like, "Oh, see, we have cred now."
We needed the Beatles, yeah.
The only thing we
You're our
need.
Beatles.
So there's a progression. There's a progression to like having white. First they got to start off playing Tanpura behind you.
That's still a big deal.
Then you know you've hit some sort of plateau. That's like stage 1. Okay. Right now, our Tanpura players are like electronic.
yeah,
We don't even have like
we don't even have
humans.
humans.
And if we do have humans, it's like some organizer's daughter that we don't even know. And usually we turn her mic off because she's out of tune.
Well,
But anyways, you get a white Tanpura player, man, you're like, that's a career high.
I want to know what 2 is.
Then
I
if you
I
get
that, yeah.
you get white students, oh shoot. So like for this podcast, I think we have one white listener, Greg. But I know his name because
Big
like,
up, Greg.
Hi,
it's
Greg.
yeah, it's a big deal. Like I know all of our white listeners.
Oh, wait, don't
He's
we?
the one.
Oh, she's not completely white though.
So it's a big deal. Okay. Then you get white students,
Yeah.
and then this is where it's really at. This is where the
Yeah.
money starts coming in.
You're going
You
straight
go-
to the top now
you
that
go-
I'm here.
You get white fans.
White fans. Oh, my
shoot.
gosh.
You go to a concert and you got white people showing up. Oh my
awesome.
god! Do you know how
That'd
much
be
money
awesome.
they would pay? They'd probably pay like $100 a ticket. Indians would be like, "We
Free.
pay for these guys."
$3.99.
Anyways, I mean, besides his color complexion, there are other qualities to our guest.
Yeah, like yeah.
No,
you know.
I only have one quality.
Like he has a name, you know.
He's an amazing cello player. Okay, he's a composer, and he's an all-around great human being.
And he just washed my dishes. He's so sweet.
Ladies and gentlemen, everybody welcome Chris Votek.
Yay!
Thank you for having me. Tis
Oh,
a pleasure.
I forgot to mention that our sound guy Jackson, he's so useless, right? We were late coming from the eye doctor.
Yeah.
And you know who's helping set this sound stuff up, connecting the cables and connecting the mic stands and all
know,
that
man.
is our guest. Jackson, what the hell's wrong with you? Man? Have some decency.
I know, man. We saw it out.
Jesus. Anyways, Chris, how you doing, man?
I'm good. I just had a lot of coffee. I feel great.
Buzzing. Buzzing.
Buzzing, huh? So you just came off of a couple of tours?
2 tours of opposite varieties.
So tell us about the first one.
The first one was with Iranian singer Humayun Sajarian. And it was through the US, like 5 shows, all sold out, big crowds, Iranian American citizens all showing up.
Oh, yeah, man.
Playing Persian classical music.
Let me talk about these Persian crowds for a second, because I've had the opportunity to do Afghani gigs, Persian gigs.
Yeah.
Also,
And-
in England, we never had any like Afghani Persian crowds. All I didn't know them.
Yeah.
You
So
didn't
this
know
was
them. They were there.
awesome. When I heard these stories, I was like, "You what?
So first of all, these guys are passionate listeners.
That's
Is that
so
true?
Awesome.
Yeah.
Second,
No, they were.
second,
Ecstatic.
they're attractive as hell.
Men
Am I
and
right,
women.
Chris? Did you see any? Oh, he saw some.
Even I saw some. Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We went to a Persian gig, and she was checking out chicks more than me.
They're beautiful, man.
It's
tall,
true.
beautiful, lovely hair. How are
It's
they so
true.
tall and then they wear heels and they're even like giants?
I had a
Good-looking
Persian
giants.
girlfriend when I was
Oh, wow.
like 25.
You know,
and
man.
I miss those days.
So this tour must have been a reminder, because it's not like, I mean, our people are attractive too, it's beautiful people, but when we're talking percentages, you go to an
Yeah.
Indian concert, maybe
Yeah.
like
Percentage, yeah.
40 to 48.2% will be attractive, whatever, right?
Yeah.
This is like 96.4%
Yeah.
of like males and females are
Yeah.
attractive people. They're
Yeah.
good looking people. Nobody believes me when I said it, but then I
didn't
took her to
believe
one
it, and then we went to a concert with
and
our
I
friend
said
Kais.
they're like, they dress well.
Yeah.
They're
They're always happy,
Yeah.
jolly, and nice, and I don't know. They're all just amazing.
so tell us
Plus
about.
the listeners. You told me about Afghani like listeners.
Oh yeah,
They're
so
holy like crazy.
so if you're going to, I think his was Iranian, so I don't know if it's the same situation. But if
you
they're
need to
listening,
invite all the people that went to his concert to our concert.
yeah. So if they're listening to Indian classical music, they're super like educated and passionate about it. They're vocal about how they listen. They're not just gonna sit there. They're gonna give you compliments at the right time and
Yeah.
and say ah and some, and
Super awesome
they're with
energy,
you
man.
the whole way.
We played at concert and there was how many? About 3 or 4 Afghanis in the audience. We did in San Diego. They were the loudest. I was so excited because I've heard so many stories about awesome concerts at Afghani, like Votek, or
Yeah.
like concerts, and I was like, oh, it would be so awesome if some of them came. So,
So
there was just 4.
It's because
and they took the house down.
It's because they catch every little detail that you're
Yeah.
doing. So if I'm going like din din na trika din na trika din da da din na din. So on that da da din na, they'll be like ah ha
Yeah.
kya karne Sardarji,
Yeah.
right? So like it's pretty cool. Like
That must have felt
You
nice.
must have had fun on that tour.
I had a lot of fun. I can't say that I was as much connected to the audience as you guys
Well, I
were.
suppose you had a bigger audience, though. So
Well,
it's a bit
these
hard
were
to
big
connect.
audiences, and I don't speak any Farsi.
Neither do we, but
And every, like, the audience is screaming the whole time, yelling
Wow.
things in Farsi. I have no idea what they're saying.
They're
they
into
might,
it, man.
They might be saying, like, oh, that cellist is awful. But that's not what I hear. I just imagine they're
Oh,
complimenting me.
they're praising you.
they'll be praising you. They're awesome people, man.
So what kind of like music did you play on that tour? So how did like is Iranian music a stretch for you, or
Is it Iranian or Iran?
I think it's Iranian.
I knew that.
No,
I
no,
was just
no.
testing you guys.
I'm just saying because England
Sure.
says Iran, not Iran.
Yeah.
I ran away.
I've studied a bit of Dastka, their classical system. I would say I'm like sub-beginner level at it. Like I don't know a lot. But this particular concert didn't require any knowledge of that really. It was playing charts, was playing with a string quartet, like all these pretty sort of romantic arrangements to support the Persian classical music.
Oh wow! And was
So-
that written for you, or did
It was all
did you
written
have
for me.
input? Or-
I didn't have any input. It was just doing my job, playing.
All right.
The
Well, that's cool. You got to
notes.
do your job, man.
Yeah, it was really fun. It was really good music, really beautiful.
And what was the second tour you did?
The second tour was with Koki the Clown, who is the alter ego of NoFX singer Fat Mike. This is like a punk band that's been around in the U.S. since the 90s, I want to say, maybe the late 80s. And his solo act, he is basically presenting himself as a drug-addicted, insane, depressed clown. And
It's my kind of guy.
and adding that little bit of string spice to make it classy was my job again in this.
Was there lots of musicians, or how many were there?
It was just like rock band, 2 guitars, bass, and then keys and vibraphone, backup singer girl who's really cool, Karina, and then violin and cello.
Wow.
So
That's cool.
yeah, like
What kind of venues do you play with those?
that
guys?
was well. I got to play my favorite venue, the venue I went to countless concerts growing up, because I grew up in Sonoma County, north of San Francisco. So the thing that we would do as high schoolers would be squeeze 7 people into a car with the one person who has a driver's license and drive to San Francisco to see a concert. The venue is the Great American Music Hall. It's like a really nice club venue in SF.
That has a big name. Yeah.
A lot of my formative shows.
My
were seen there, so it was
my
cool to
teacher
play
played there.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, he played there with Rahat.
Oh, really?
yeah.
That's crazy.
So I don't like
All styles of music.
Yeah.
well, it was quality. So there was, I think Nusrat had just passed away or was very ill, and Rahat was starting his own. I think this was his first set of concerts on his own. And he had requested that my teacher sort of help him along and show him the ropes and stuff. And they got some manager that was booking them in rooms that are not typical.
Yeah.
So it was, one of them was that. One of them
Yeah.
was like McCabe's guitar shop in LA.
Oh yeah. I know
Then there was
that
also like the Viper Room.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Like
Viper Room. Wow.
Yeah, and so these
Can't
crazy
imagine.
venues, and then they would be. So I got to go on these shows, and then they would be packed with like industry people
Yeah.
and like celebrities, and I think Madonna came to one,
Yeah.
but I didn't get to meet her. She had like security and stuff, but
Drat.
yeah, I mean like the composer for what's that Tim Robbins movie? Not Tim Robbins, his wife, Dead Man Walking.
Ooh.
Yeah, like he was there, and just different people would show up, and it was just this weird thing. But that's how I know that venue.
Okay.
So
Nice.
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it was there, and it was at the Whiskey here in LA,
Oh.
and a place called the Brooklyn Bazaar in New York. So nice rock and roll venues.
That's cool. So yeah, where'd your music journey begin before you were packing into these vans?
Well, I was just noticing Kamaljeet's Foo Fighters shirt
My
because
favorite band.
my first real music love was Nirvana when I was in 6th grade. Yeah, 6th grade. I was playing electric bass. Started playing electric bass. Was playing in a garage with a few buddies covering Nirvana songs. And then from there it went to covering Rage Against the Machine songs.
Oh, nice.
And then to Primus songs. Started doing slap bass a lot. And now I've left all that behind.
Yeah, that's not what you do now.
Completely.
That's cool, though.
Yeah.
What was your favorite track to play from Nevada?
Nirvana. Oh man, there's so many.
There
You just did all of them.
Yeah.
No, but there's a couple that you gravitate towards. One maybe harder.
Scentless Apprentice off of In Utero. Boom, boom, gatum, da, do, 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 gatum, dun, dun, gatum, du, 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 whoosh. That one.
Cool. And then, so then, like you, so wait, how'd you get the cello? Like, where did that come from?
That didn't come till later, because, okay, so I described to you like middle school me playing bass, and then high school me got just like a little bit more sophisticated, but still playing rock bass. At that point, I was listening to like Radiohead
Also,
and
great band.
Portishead, all the heads.
Fantastic, man. You've got some great musical choices, man. Me and you, man.
All right, we were finally finding out we like the same
Yeah,
music.
we do.
We haven't like talked about anything other than Indian classical
Yeah,
music.
I know.
Which is good because we're working on a project together. It's good to know that we have some compatibility.
Yeah, and like electronic music started becoming something I listened to a lot then. Aphex Twin, Square Pusher,
Another one.
a lot of British electronic.
Yeah, I know. I'm
electronic
surprised.
artists. Amon Tobin.
Yep, him too.
And then as I was finishing up high school, I got tired of playing bass lines. I was playing bass in like band, like symphonic band. I was playing boom, 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 boom all day.
Right.
I was playing in an instrumental rock band, also just holding down the roots all the time. Lots of roots. I was just like, I want to play melodies. I want to play melodies. And I wanted to still play an instrument that was like low and rich and deep sounding. So it's like cello seems like a good idea. When I graduated high school, I just stopped playing everything else and started practicing cello.
So you learn in high school, or
I started my senior year, but I mostly like just the year after I graduated high school, I had lots of time and just started taking cello lessons and like doing cello, trying to catch up
through school.
Yeah.
Because in my high school, I couldn't learn stuff like cello.
Yeah.
I could barely learn like violin if I wanted to.
Yeah.
It seems like American schools just have orchestras and everything in every school.
I don't know
that
what the
just
case is now, but yeah, when I was growing
choir.
up,
We never had choir.
there was a band, there was choir, and you could pick up string instruments or
That's very
wind
cool.
instruments or
Yeah.
percussion.
Depends on the school.
I didn't do any of that.
But it was there, right?
Yeah, I was just like, I play tabla, I'm better than all these guys.
I don't need to play these
In all
stupid instruments.
in all humility. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, I don't know what the situation is now because I hear about arts funding cuts, but then I also have friends that have kids and they're doing amazing things. So maybe it just depends on where you go. Or
Maybe, yeah.
a lot of public schools have totally slashed their music funding, which is terrible. Like my teaching job is with Harmony Project, and what they do is they go to these schools where there's no music program anymore, and they privately raise money to put one back in.
Oh.
So like that's
That's
what my teaching job is.
Oh wow, I didn't even know about that.
Yeah, because especially California is bad with cutting programs to school for music, unfortunately.
You wouldn't think there would be. But
Yeah, I thought we were like liberal and cool.
anymore.
We're supposed to be, but we also have a poor way of distributing income to schools, like based on the tax bracket that you're in. Like, I don't know exactly how it works, but
Yeah, I don't know. how
low-income
numbers work.
neighborhoods get cut. The funding gets cut,
Yeah.
which is bad. It's not the people who need it most don't get it.
That's
Man,
terrible.
I want to work in a organization like yours.
Well, let's sign you up.
Yeah, man. You want to learn some too? I'm coming to your school.
Yeah. So what is this organization?
Harmony Project?
Yeah.
Harmony Project, they've been around for maybe a decade and a half. They're growing all the time, adding more and more programs. They're just really good at raising money privately and then setting up these programs. They're always after-school programs, usually like instrumental classes, like 2 times a week. The kids get like a cello class. Then on the weekend, they come in and do orchestra while playing together. And we try to keep them in the program from like 3rd, 4th grade all the way through when they graduate high school. And the best thing is, if they stick with it and don't flake out, don't drop it, and play their instrument the whole time, they get a scholarship to go to college.
How awesome is
Wow.
that?
So it's really about reaching out and helping kids go to college,
That's amazing.
like through music.
That's amazing.
It's a really great program. I've been teaching with them for almost 10 years now. It's been a while.
That's
Wow.
wonderful.
Who knew?
Not us, obviously.
I don't
we
think
hang
they- I
out
don't
all the time. And like, I never
No,
heard that.
I knew Chris teached it, but I didn't know about the
Yeah.
actual organization. and
Well,
what
they don't have a
actually
Corona site yet, so they gotta
okay.
get that Corona site.
is. Maybe we can push that along.
Yeah. All right.
Wait,
so
how many people in these classes?
Like
Well,
each
class
cello
sizes.
class is like between 5 and 10.
Do they have to buy their own instruments?
Nope, provide their own.
You
well,
haul how many instruments you sell? You have to haul them all.
I have 30 cello students with 30 little cellos.
And they have those themselves, or
Like
they hire them?
No, they buy them. Harmony Project just keeps picking up instruments whenever they can. So from their like fundraising, they can afford to buy some
Man,
instruments.
we need to fundraise to buy some Santoos for our kids.
Yeah, yeah. Get the Santour stash.
Yeah, man.
yes, Synthurs are a problem because there's not that many reputable makers. There's like one or two,
And they really hiked up their prices.
and they
Yeah.
jacked up
I
their
think
prices.
when I bought my Santur, it was £200.
Wow,
It's super cheap.
that's very cheap.
Dirt cheap. Now they're what, $700?
Yeah,
What happened there then?
Yeah, so then for students, young children, that's difficult.
It's a bit
Yeah.
hard to commit
Yeah.
that much money.
totally. And I mean, that's a reason why a parent would be like, "Well, no music for you.
Yeah, I know.
It's too expensive."
It's a valid reason.
So, anyways, you're at the end of high school and you've sort of picked up the cello. You just picked it up yourself?
I started getting lessons, but it was pretty much my idea to switch just because I
Oh,
was
cool.
tired of the bass. Played enough low notes. And then I went to CalArts. That was the next step in
Right.
my life.
So, how'd you get to CalArts?
Why does everyone love Cal Arts? Please tell me. Everyone
You're
loves
our third or fourth CalArts.
Case,
it.
Neil.
No.
Because Guy's there?
Yeah,
No.
he was there.
He was at Cal Arts?
Yeah, not when I was there, but he was there.
Really?
Oh, I thought it was
You
just
never told us.
unofficially, yeah. Neil,
Okay, then he's Kai's 2. And then Robin.
Robin, Chris.
4 of them.
40% of our guests are from CalArts. So they should be giving us
Royalties or something.
sponsorship.
Pay us some money, man.
So how'd you wind up? Like how'd you find CalArts, or how did you connect with it?
Well, I was in kind of a awkward position of applying to music school, having only 1 year of experience on my instrument.
Oh,
That's sort of not the
man.
best setup for impressing a school with your audition and having them give you a scholarship and help you go to their school. But CalArts lets you apply as a musical arts major, meaning you're applying because you want to do a lot of different things, whereas most other music schools are like, okay, you can pick jazz studies, or you can pick composition, or you can
Right.
pick classical cello. And all of those things, picking one of those things was not appealing to me. So CalArts was one of the only places that let you be like, hey, I do lots of different stuff. We'll consider that in your entry requirements and shit. So that's what appealed to me about it. And then I went there and looked around, and they have the whole world music program happening, and they have a strong emphasis on collaborative projects between all the disciplines, because there's the animation department and the dance department and the film department and the photography department, and they are very much encouraged to do projects together. I was like, that's cool. That's appealing.
That is pretty cool.
So that's what drew me in. And then
Man, I want to go there.
there wasn't really any other...
Do they have what's it called? Babysitting.
babysitting services. Yeah, it is. I mean, it's a very creative and open-minded place, and very encouraging, very nurturing of trying new things. So that was very appealing.
So you have a bachelor's, is that what it's called? Or?
Yeah, it's just a bachelor's. I was there for 3 years.
Okay, cool.
I did 1 year of community college to make it less money too, because I did all my general ed just at a community college because it was like 95% cheaper, like 5% of the tuition. So that helped a little bit.
But I think USC is the example I gave where I don't know if Kamaljeet, I don't know what the schools are like in England, but there are certain schools here where the sense of community after graduating is very strong.
Yeah.
So when you meet a Cal Arts guy and like, you know that he's connected to other Cal Arts people.
Yeah.
And I mean, just same with like USC. Whereas like where the school where I went to, like UC San Diego, it's if I meet somebody from UC San Diego, it's hey, okay,
same
that's
with
cool.
my school.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's not called school, it's a university.
Same thing.
Not the same thing at all. School is for preschool and little children. It's university.
Uni.
Yes, uni. But I think they do have community when you get to Cambridge and that kind of Oxford, that kind of place in England.
Right. So you picked up, learned about Indian music, Indian classical music at Cal Arts then? Is that what your first experience with it?
Yeah. I was introduced to it when I went to check out Cal Arts to see if I wanted to go there. The World Music Festival they do every year was happening. And I saw Ashish Khan play with Swapanda.
Oh, wow.
And that was the first Indian classical music anything I had seen in my entire life. And it definitely like sparked something in me. It was like, I want to do that.
Oh, cool.
Or at least I want to like understand that a little bit. Because it definitely like blew my mind a little bit. It was
Well, so yeah, tell me what your reaction really was. Like what
was it?
Yeah, what were they playing? What did you feel? What did you see? Because sometimes Indian classical music can be a bit
Boring.
boring or
Boring.
not boring. Like you kind of have to have a taste for it. Sometimes people say.
Sometimes, yeah. Well,
But
no.
you did hear legit
You
people.
have to feel, yeah.
You heard like some great people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That helped.
Because sometimes people hear mediocre artists and they're like, I don't get this at all.
Yeah.
They'll make you understand it.
Yeah. So you got lucky there that you heard your first
Yeah.
experience was to hear like some living legends.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember super clearly what my thoughts were. I remember just not understanding a lot, like being sort of baffled. I was definitely baffled by it must have been T-Highs that I was baffled by, because I was like, how are they playing the same thing? How are they lining up like this?
So at the high is a phrase that you play 3 times in succession to land on the one. Just for our listeners.
Yeah.
For the people at home.
It's the thing that's kicked off the show.
Yes, that thing.
But I think overall, my impression, the thing that really intrigued me was how flowing and like gradually accelerating the music was. I had never heard such a long form of a piece that was so.
that builds
it's
up.
like just like a river where more and more water is added and more density.
That's a really good analogy.
Like that shape, everything being part of this big shape, was a new experience. Hearing that.
Do you remember what they played, or
I don't know. I probably.
you wouldn't have known at the time? Right?
I wouldn't.
you
Yeah,
wouldn't
because I
know,
just
yeah.
heard it and it was over, and I don't remember the rock name or anything. Yeah.
Cool.
That's cool. So then you hear this concert, and then obviously you're in the school, so now you have access to these.
Yeah.
So by the way, Cal Arts, so Ashish Kansab and Swapanji teach at Cal Arts, even though they're full-time performing artists and
Yes.
like living legends. They both have teaching positions there. So the
Yes.
students there, like, they all get an Indian classical background.
Yep.
So if we switch gears for a second, I met Chris. So this show is on Dash Radio, and it's on Ruckus Avenue Radio, and that's run by Sammy Chand.
Big ups, Sammy.
Yeah, thanks, Sammy. He was running, or is running, a record label called Ruckus Avenue.
Ruckus Avenue.
Ruckus Avenue.
Yeah.
And he had put together a showcase in like 2006 or 7.
Right. Yeah.
And it was in LA, like at the Barnsdall Theater. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, the Barnsdall Theater, up on the top of the park.
Yeah, it's top of the, yeah.
Oh,
I think
okay.
I've taken you there.
They've got a gallery there.
Yeah,
too.
there's a
Yeah.
gallery there
Oh,
too.
okay. Yeah, I know
Yeah.
what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tried to get some pieces in there, but they were like, no, go away. I'm like, fine.
Anyways, I'm playing with Ginger Shankar, and she has a quartet. Is it a quartet or a
I don't
quintet
even
or a
remember.
sextet?
I don't remember what I
seventet?
played.
I don't know how many tets there were.
A number of string players,
There was a number of tets.
a certain number of people
Not
with string
Tourette's.
instruments.
And like I don't know if you had met. I'm meeting you guys there. Like I think that there was a rehearsal and sound check the day before, and then there was the actual
you
show.
were performing.
So I had already known these pieces, and Ginger like just sent me MP3s, and I was like, okay, I'll do it. So I met these guys there, and I think during and after one of the sound checks or before one of them or something, I just talking to him. I'm like, where are you from? Blah blah blah. And Chris is the cello player, and he says I'm Chris, and I was like, oh, like where do you go to school, whatnot. He tells me about Cal Arts. I was like, Cal Arts. That means Indian classical music. Why don't you play me something? And that's exactly what I said, right?
That is what you said.
And he busts out in a lot. I think it was Kirwani, but I don't remember.
That sounds plausible.
And it was like
Legit.
it was legit. It wasn't like
Skills.
what is this white guy trying to do? It was like legit. And I was like super impressed. And so I think that's where we first met. And then
Yeah.
I always sort of had Chris in the back of my mind, like whenever stuff would come up. And then I think more recently our paths have crossed a lot. Now we're working on a project together.
Yeah.
But yeah, and you've always supported us at our gigs, and we try to come to yours. And but that was the first meeting
Yeah. That's
Oh,
the
through
so
Ruckus
wonderful.
Avenue, and now you're back on their radio
Yeah.
Oh,
station.
full circle.
back to the ruckus.
What a record.
So that's cool. So then, like, what is your study period like at Cal Arts? Is there like a percentage breakdown? Are you doing a certain number of Indian things or certain?
When I was at Cal Arts, I wasn't focusing on Indian classical music.
Okay.
It was more like
Just curiosity.
I was introduced to it and I took the classes, but I was too busy trying to juggle all the different things you do at Cal Arts, which are like also learning some gamelan and composition and jazz and playing contemporary classical music. Like I was mostly doing composition and playing like string quartets. That's what I was like focused on when I was there. It wasn't until I graduated that I was like, oh, now I might be able to get deeper into this because I actually have time to focus on one thing. Like I graduated, was unemployed. It's like I can actually practice. And that's when I met Jagan Ramamurthy.
Okay.
There was another cellist who was my classmate who had already been taking some lessons from Jagan. And he said, come along to my lesson. And I sat down. And that first time I sat in the room with Jagan was the first time I was like, oh, I like really want to do this. I want to take this seriously.
And what was it about that made you say that?
Okay, here's an analogy. A lot of times when you find some new kind of music, it's kind of like, it's like a new door has been opened and you've walked into like a new room, right? It's like a new style. You're like, oh, everything's new and exciting in this new room. When I heard Jagan play, it was like a door was open and I walked through it and I realized that I had been in a room and now I'm outside.
Oh.
Now like the whole...
Now you're in Maui on the beach.
Yeah. Now there's like the sun and like forests and meadows and I can frolic around. Because it was really the violin style as it relates to the cello style is like what makes sense on my instrument. Because all the microtonal slides, all the space between notes. It all suddenly made sense when I heard him play. Trying to copy like Sarod
Yeah.
is really
It's
hard.
difficult, yeah.
It's
And it doesn't really make sense on the cello.
Yeah.
It makes sense for a plucked instrument where you have a da attack and then it decays. But like the gayaki, the singing style, hearing it on a violin was the first time I thought, oh, there's this whole universe of space between the notes and expression. Every kind of speed of slide has a different expression. It's this whole universe of sound that I didn't even realize existed. So that's what made me fall in love with it and like start learning it like really seriously.
Wow.
That's really cool. Is Juggin still around or?
Yeah, he's around.
Okay, I haven't seen him in ages.
He's kind of undercover operator.
Oh, okay.
And he's from LA?
He grew
not
up
met
in
Juggin.
India.
I've not met Juggin, so.
He lives in.
He lives in Sherman Oaks here.
Oh, okay, so.
But he's one of N. Rajamji's senior disciples. He moved here also to go to CalArts. Back like long before I did. Like I want to say around 2000. I think that's when he moved here.
Also, Riginder, I just remembered.
Oh yeah,
Oh, and
Raginder,
Rajiv.
yeah.
Dude, it's like 70%.
And Rajiv.
It's like
Rajiv.
70% of our guests are from
You
Cal
got Rajiv
Arts.
on too?
And it's like not on purpose.
It's not on purpose at all.
Yeah.
That's crazy, man. Yeah, so I did a session for Joseph Trapanese. Do you know him?
No.
He's a big composer now. He did a bunch of music for Dexter, and then he did some music for Tron.
Cool.
But I did a session for him, and Juggin was part of that.
Oh, okay.
So that was the last time I saw him. I think that was like 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was cool. And then now you're learning from his teacher?
Yeah. After studying with Jaganji for 8 years. For 8 years, he sent me to learn from Amaji.
Wow.
So he sent you.
That's yeah.
That requires some humility.
Yeah. No, I mean, I feel very blessed that he felt confident enough to send me.
Wow.
It was still terrifying going there first time.
So you actually went there.
To Calcutta, right?
To Mumbai, actually.
Mumbai.
To Thane, outside of Mumbai. And I didn't know whether she would accept me as a student, but she said, "Sure, have him come. He'll play for me, and then we'll figure it out." So that was one of the scariest things I've ever done.
Wow.
Yeah, so tell us about that.
Did
Oh,
you have to take flowers and sweets and gifts? Did you have to do the whole thing?
I brought the wrong candies.
Oh no!
What do you mean wrong candies?
I was supposed to bring C's candies.
Oh no!
Yeah.
I was
what'd you brought?
specifically told to bring C's candies. But I was like coming from my parents' house in Northern California, and all the like fancy wine country chocolate places only have like wine flavored
Yeah.
chocolates, which is exactly the wrong kind of chocolate to bring.
Oh, yeah.
Oh no!
So I brought the wrong chocolates, but it was fine. But yeah, I traveled there alone.
Culture shock.
Yeah, definitely culture shock.
This is the first time?
First time traveling anywhere alone. Actually, I've been on a lot of tours, but I've never like gone somewhere solo. So that was exciting. I probably would have been more nervous and freaked out if my buddy Jake Charkey had not already been there. He had been living in Mumbai for 4 years and studying with Amaji.
Oh.
So he kind of had paved this path
That
a little
helps.
bit. So I went and hung out with him for a few days and practiced with him because he had already he's spent a lot of time figuring out how to do all the violin technique things on the cello.
Mm-hmm.
So just having a little bit more practice with him helped me get ready. And then I went to her house in Thane and played for her.
What did you play?
I played Ahir Bhairav.
Oh, nice.
Which is one of the things I had worked on with Jaganji the longest. And I felt pretty comfortable with it, relatively speaking. And she said, yeah, okay, let's do lessons for 5 weeks while you're here.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I got lucky.
And how did those go?
Really good.
Are you what's
Man, so good.
Is it like a couple of hours or just an hour?
Just an hour, but like
Every day, every
like
day, every
3 times a week, I think.
That's
3
really
times
good.
a
Oh my
week.
God, you got so much time.
Yeah, it was really good. And I just was practicing every other hour that I wasn't with her.
Man, I miss those days.
It was so good. It was so, and she's such a good teacher. She's the best teacher I've had of anything in my life. She just always knew exactly what I would be able to do and exactly what I wouldn't be able to do. And she gave me everything up till the threshold every time. Like, here's the hardest thing that I'm going to let you have today.
For the moment.
Yeah, and then the next time it's one thing harder.
Yeah, so you just keep climbing that
Man,
way.
it's so awesome to have awesome teachers.
Yeah. It's really, really wonderful being there. I want to go back. I might go back in August.
Oh, I miss Bombay. I want to go see Gurji though.
Where'd you what was the best thing you ate there?
A bunch of stuff that I have no idea what it's called. But I got, what's it called when they, tiffin. I had a setup with a lady who made tiffin, and I would go to her house and pick it up.
That's cool.
It was South Indian tiffin.
And it came in those little containers that stack up.
The stacked containers. I know I had a lot of sambar. I love the sambar. But everything I had was so good.
Yeah. So when you're learning Indian classical music, food is part of the equation. Like
It definitely is.
it's a part of the equation. Like
If you
some of my best lessons have been over food, like at restaurants or even at somebody's house or after a concert.
Yeah.
Those are the best times.
Yeah.
I mean, even when we went to learn to Bombay to learn.
all
with-
musicians know where the best places to eat as well.
Yeah.
The best.
Yeah, I mean, the last time we went to Bombay, we found restaurants close to
Just to where Gurji was
Shivji's
staying.
home.
Yeah. Just like a little hole in the walls. Awesome food.
Yeah.
Really, really tasty.
It's
still
part of
remember.
what's kept me in the focused on Indian classical music. Like, well, even if I feel like I sound awful, I'm gonna eat really good food.
And cheap.
Oh,
Good,
dude,
cheap
it's so
food.
cheap over there. Kamaljeet was haggling with like a cab driver, and I was like, the guy's saying he's gonna stay with us for 6 hours, and it's like $9.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
everyone does.
And then she was like, "You don't think in dollars compared to here. He's ripping us off."
In my like super
And then we
Russian
would
Yeah.
go to that Lashkada place and order
Yeah.
like 63 things, and we're like stuffed, and the bill would come and it'd be like $4 for 3 people.
Man, that place was
Yeah.
awesome. That baton was so good.
Yeah, man.
Aubergines, oh, ho, ho, ho. I'm
So,
hungry, man.
you're still learning from her, like
Yeah, we've been doing
on and
Skype
off, or
lessons.
oh,
She just
Skype?
Skype lessons.
You're
Yeah.
lucky, man. That's
Very
really
cool.
That's cool.
Pretty much this whole year, we've been doing about average every week or every 2 weeks.
That's
So
great.
lucky, man.
Yeah,
So lucky.
I could not be luckier. I don't think.
What rag are you working on now?
Uh,
Rags.
Jog and Bagashri.
Big issue.
It's a good one.
So do you still? I mean, you definitely have an Indian classical presence, but and then you just did these 2 other tours. Like, is there a balance that you're trying to keep, or it's just like whatever comes up, or?
I feel like at this moment in my life, the Indian classical music is what I'm doing for personal fulfillment and for fun.
Oh.
It's not yet what I'm doing for work. So everything else I do that's music, is pretty much like how I pay the bills, and it's always changing genre-wise. And it's difficult to keep up rag practice with these other musics that sort of have nothing to do with it.
Right.
And for
because it's completely different
Everything.
way of thinking.
Technique.
yeah, different tuning, different technique, different like mindset about the music. I mean, it is all music, so I'm still practicing music when I'm playing a wedding gig. It's playing Paco Bell's Canon or whatever. It's still music, but it doesn't really help me play raga.
Yeah.
So it's kind of always like when I get busy with work, it's like, oh, I feel the rag calling me back. I wish I was practicing
itchy.
every day. But then when I don't have gigs, it's like, yes, I get to practice.
Yeah.
Get to practice, not major. Thank
Yeah.
God.
I mean, we have the same feeling, right?
Yeah.
There's things that we want to do or want to work on, but then sometimes you get a recording session and then you
Yeah.
have these other 2 gigs that you got to prepare for.
Yeah.
And then they made you memorize this much music and like,
Yeah.
I mean, even though we're still like, it's most of it's still like Indian or whatever, but
Yeah.
it's still pulling us away from
And we have
what
like
we wanna
limited
do.
time now.
And then we have children,
Yeah.
so that's even harder.
Yeah.
Yeah, time is always tough to manage.
Balancing.
Yeah.
It's really hard to do. Sometimes you
And-
do it, sometimes you don't.
Passion
Yeah.
versus like money. Like
Totally
it's
blinded by the sun. Where did it come from?
It's from your special window that's designed just to blind you.
so. I mean, you do have a couple of passion projects that are coming out, right? You've got a couple of albums that you're working on.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing that I do all the time, I can't stop doing it. It's like sleeping or eating, is writing music. So I've been working on 2 records for the last like 3 or 4 years, very gradually.
Yeah.
And they're finally pretty much done. They're like at the point of mixing touch-ups and coming up with track names, which is the
That's
hardest part.
That is the hardest part. I have a track called Re Como because it uses a Re Como.
Oh yeah.
I'm fine with that name.
Yeah.
Why do I need to name it like, the sunset that never arrived or something? Like when I look at track names, I mean, I don't know how musicians, I don't think any musician goes in with,
I'd like to call this track.
yeah.
Yeah.
You're going in to create the music, and then afterward, you're like, oh, I got to name this thing.
Yeah. I've had certain things where I just forgot to change the name, and the piece is now called the temporary document title. It's like a bunch of numbers.
Yeah.
And then people are like, oh, what an artist.
Yeah.
Use
How
numbers.
artsy. What an artsy, cryptic message this must be.
So why 2 albums? What's the difference between these 2 albums?
Well, one is strictly string music. It's all music composed for string quintet, which is like normal string quartet with an extra cello, because I like the cello. I couldn't help but write 2 cello parts. So that's all music that like could be performed live by 5 people. Nothing fancy about it. It's
But I heard a little bit of your sketches. I mean, they were beautiful.
oh, thanks.
I wouldn't, saying there's nothing fancy about it. I would say it is fancy. It sounded great.
It's kind of like I don't know how to describe it really stylistically. It's like I go through my life playing lots of different kinds of music, including music from around the world. And then when I went to write that music, I just tried to pretend like I didn't know what language it was and just deal with sound. So none of it's like rock-based strictly or any particular tradition based. It's just kind of like what comes out when I make up melodies on the cello and then build them into a string quintet. So that's sort of the premise of that whole album. It's about 30 minutes of string quintet music.
Oh, wow. And then when you're writing this music, what are you doing? Are you at your cello? Are you on a piece of paper?
I switch off. I got both things. Got the cello and the microphone recording into the computer, and then like editing like a recording project basically of layers and layers of cello. I like to pitch shift up the cello to be the violin parts. And then I usually like take a chunk of that and write it all out very meticulously, and then kind of put on my Western compositional brain and try to like do Western compositional stuff like with it, like do normal harmonies or motivic development, or think of it more like the way like a Western classical composer thinks. And then go back the other way and kind of try to get both.
Just keep going back and forth.
Yeah, both like the organic feeling of improvising on my instrument into a microphone, and then the more like meticulous, brainy, making a machine out of the different voices kind of thinking that is more compositional, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, when we write, we're playing.
Oh, I have to be at my center. My brain just don't work at all.
Yeah. I mean,
it does,
also
but then
we
I
have
have to figure out how
yeah,
it-
we have no language. Like we don't know how to write
Yeah.
Right.
notation.
Yeah.
So we just everything's played, whether it's on the keyboard or
Yeah.
santur or whatever, and then it's in the computer. It's moved around, and
Yeah.
so it's definitely very improv, right? Like we won't know going in what it's gonna sound like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very like organic, natural process where we're just gonna go
Yeah.
put something out there and see what it's like, and then
Then
we do
tweak
the
or-
tweak, yeah.
Yeah. Though there's also something to be said for the Indian classical approach to improvisation. In my opinion, more than any other tradition, it's like spontaneous composition. It's like very thoughtful, like you're designing something carefully in the moment. You're not just like, here's my emotions, here we go. It's like,
Yeah, so maybe you can tell us more about other cultures and stuff. Because we don't. I mean, what you just described is like it is done in the moment, but it's not just you're not vomiting out stuff. You're like.
It's like because you practice it so much, you kind of have an idea
and
of
even
what you want to do.
and even the guys that are doing like the background strings of a Bollywood song, right? They're not sitting with a piece of paper and like thinking about each part. They're just gonna do that improvisation to like this violin section, then they'll walk over to the cello section and be like, you guys are gonna do this part, and then he's like, play it together, all right, cool, you guys do this. And it's the same Indian classical way of writing music, even though it's not Indian classical, they're like it's Bollywood, or whatever non-Indian classical genre. Because I think the difference between Indian classical music and Western classical music, like one of the differences, there's many differences. One is that,
that we know.
the Indian classical root, Indian
know
classical is
everything.
the root
Yeah.
of all Indian music.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say it. I'm like,
You can't say something with the root without saying it's the root of all evil. That's the only kind of root there is.
What other word do you use?
I'm sorry, I'm just
So
really tired.
if you're singing a ghazal or a qawwali or like Punjabi folk or Rajasthani folk,
Yeah, it's all Indian classical.
or now even like the newer Indian hip hop guys or whatever, they'll all have some form of training, whether informal or formal, of Indian classical music, and it all leads back there.
Yeah.
Whereas I can't say that like Jay-Z's music is related to Mozart's, right? Whereas we can sort of say like Daler Mehndi, who's like a pop artist, has like done his track in like Mishra Pahadi, and then he tweaked these parts and he added a Bhangra dance beat to it, and then there was a root, there's a piece of it.
Yeah.
So it's all the thinking comes from there.
Yeah.
And then the two feed into each other. So like the greatest classical musicians put their feet into other genres.
Yeah.
And then we're able to like take some of that thinking and put it back into their playing, and it all just feeds into each other.
Yeah.
So it's pretty in that sense, there's like a unity amongst genres over there. There's a link.
Yeah, there's a common language.
Yeah. So I mean, so like you were saying that Indian classical is like sort of right in the moment or whatever. So what are what are you comparing that to? Like, well, I don't know the other. Like, what's the other way of doing it?
I mean,
To give us context, because we don't know.
yeah, I think most other improvisational traditions are less methodical, and the training is less methodical. So when you go to improvise, it is more like forget
Vomit?
everything and play what comes to your head.
Oh yeah, because that's not what you're trained to do, right?
Yeah.
We're trained to.
But I mean, when they say play everything and play what comes to your head and forget everything,
That's really hard.
you
to
can't do that. You have training. You have training. You have things that you've played before, and they're gonna come out. And like even if you're like, oh, like I'll do that before, I'll change this part and that part. It's still.
Yeah, but you have to practice to do that.
I guess I'm so stuck in my way of thinking that I
Yeah.
can't comprehend that.
I can see it because if you get told, yeah, if you've been like playing, you've been learning this piece, that piece, that piece, and you got told to just be a free bird, you'll be like, I don't know how to fly, mate. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's no escaping your life of practicing things that you know.
Right.
But if the practicing things that you know has been more of like a reaction to whatever's around you musically throughout your whole life, and less of like the very systematic training that you do learning raga, it's going to be less methodical. It's going to be more spontaneous. Yeah. I mean, I think that other kind of improvisation is very good and very interesting, and I think the great jazz musicians truly are reacting, and sometimes like really wiping their memory clean and just making new things that they've never even thought of before. And that I don't know how to do that, but
So I mean
interesting.
that is something that's a goal of ours.
Yeah.
That's what we're told that where we need to get to. And some like every now and then it does happen.
Yeah.
Like it happened that day
By
with
accident.
Shali, like when I was doing that matal thing, I
Yeah, it
came
happens
up
by
with something
accident.
I'd never done before ever, and I was like, "Did
Yeah.
somebody record that? What did I just do?"
Yeah, and then you forget it. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, but that's the goal, right? Like, and
Yeah.
so
Can
then
you just put your belly away, please? Yeah, well, like, thanks.
Distracting, isn't
I
it?
know, man. I don't even see that. The sun here and the belly there, God.
so the other thing is like there's a spiritual component to Indian classical music. Is that it has its root in like prayer and meditation and being related to like God and stuff. So then the musicians feel that like when this improvisation is happening, like and that they are playing something that's never been played before,
Yeah.
that it's from above, right? Like
Right.
that there's divine intervention there, like to that's giving you something.
Yeah.
So that's how they would say it. So then I'm sure you've heard in interviews and stuff like that where they say it's not me, it's
music's
God,
coming
He's
through.
giving
Yeah.
it to me.
Yeah.
But that is the goal of us. Like, you know, I mean, you're a teacher, Shivji, my teacher, like Rais Khan, the sitar player, the phrases that he came up with and like in rags are just insane.
Yeah.
Never to be heard again.
Never to be, yeah, and he wouldn't even repeat them.
Yeah.
So that is the goal of where we want to go. But it's hard.
It is hard.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's also just a really cool thing to be able to improvise so compositionally.
Yeah.
And I feel like it certainly had a big impact on how I am able to compose music and how I'm able to improvise music from studying rag. Because before they were like separate things, and now they're way more united. Whenever I take a cello solo, I'm thinking about, oh, here's the first couple of notes that I'm dealing with. How can I rearrange them?
Yeah.
Like all those little step-by-step things you do. I think it's really nice to have them that like that have that be at the forefront of your brain when you're playing music.
Right.
That's, I mean, it's just something that I appreciate a lot from studying this music.
No, that's cool.
Do you want to wrap up the dash section?
Yeah, I think we should.
I think we're probably.
I mean, Chris is an amazing cello player, and you should hear his work. Why don't you let the people know where they can find you?
Yeah, you can find my website at
Brand new website.
www.chrisvotek.com. My name's spelled like vote K, vote like what you do at the voting booth to get Trump out of office. And then my Instagram is Chris Votek, at Chris Votek. That's all I got. Website and Instagram.
That's all you need, man. We're at. You can find us at absolutefocus.co, and all our social media stuff is on there as well. And then if you can hit us up on Patreon at patreon.com/absolutefocus. Thanks very much for listening, guys.
Thank you. Thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to hit the subscribe button.